Guys, I can't be the only one that's noticed that there are just too many spells in D&D that are just a worse version of another spell. Let's go ahead and start with the worst spell in the game, Crown of Madness. This spell is just terrible. Never take this spell if you can help it. Firstly, not only is it a wisdom saving throw, which is one of the most common saving throws that people will have proficiency in the game of Dungeons and Dragons, players and NPCs alike. But also, it's a very visual effect. Like creatures aren't going to be like, "Why are you doing this?" Oh, what? Like they're gonna notice the crown of jagged iron that appears on its head. Like the creatures know that you're being affected by something when you're under the spell. Let's also not forget that they're charmed and not frightened, which, if you're charmed, that's one of the most common immunities to a condition that you can have in the game, as well as it uses an action to use on subsequent turns, meaning that if you don't use your action every single turn, the spell just ends. Also, it doesn't even happen when you use your action. You have to wait for that creature's turn, and it can only work if a creature is within range for it to attack. It's terrible. It's the worst spell in the game. If another creature moves before the start of the affected creature's turn, then it just does nothing. It just acts as normal. It's terrible. It's the worst spell in the game. Compare this to the level 3 spell Enemies Abound, it is just not even close. To start with, it requires an intelligence saving throw, which is not a very common proficiency for creatures to have, as well as it doesn't use your action on every single turn for it to go, and they'll just attack anybody. It doesn't matter if it's friend or foe, they'll just attack every single person within range with whatever attack or spell makes the most sense for them. It's just for one level higher, you just get a million times better version of Crown of Madness. That also isn't a visual aspect to it, so creatures know that they're under the effects of a spell. Now, another spell that's really bad, Jim's Magic Missile. It's just not as good as the normal version. To start with, you have to roll to hit, which makes no sense. That's not what Magic Missile is all about. I mean, yeah, you do more damage as a result, but it's still under the same conditions for being negated by shield or brooch of shielding as Magic Missile. It's just not that good. Also, you have to spend gold to cast it, and you have to spend more gold to upcast it. I mean, dude, we're not gonna use our gold to cast Magic Missile when we can just do it for free and have it automatically hit. It's just not worth it to cast Jim's Magic Missile. A great alternative to a spell, though, if you don't have the better version, is Spirit Shroud. Spirit Shroud is basically just a light version of Spirit Guardians, but for more melee combatants. And I think that's great. It's a great alternative. Granted, if you have Spirit Guardians, you'd probably just be better off taking that. I mean, for Spirit Guardians, you're doing more damage, you reduce the speed of the creature within the range by half. It's still concentration. So, I mean, I would just take Spirit Guardians any day of the week over Spirit Shroud if you have the option. Another spell that just isn't worth having, Warding Wind. It's just, it's not good. It's not. It does everything that Wall of Wind does, but worse. It doesn't prevent creatures from entering the space. It doesn't prevent ranged attacks from hitting you. It just hedges out and slightly disperses gases and things like that. It's just, it does everything that Wall of Wind does, but way worse. First of all, Wind Wall does 3d8 bludgeoning damage to creatures, as well as it actually keeps all smoke and fog away from the area. Smaller and smaller flying creatures can't get past. Arrows can't get past. The only thing that can is trebuchet ammo or catapult ammo and giant boulders and things like that, as well as spells. That's it. Those are the only things that go past it. And why would you ever take the worst level 2 version when you can just spend one extra level and get Wind Wall? It makes no sense whatsoever. Two great spells that actually are comparable to each other, Beacon of Hope and Aura of Life. These two spells are amazing, and they do relatively similar things, but they're also different and unique enough that if you were to take only one or the other, you'd be doing a really good thing for your party. These are great spells. Beacon of Hope and Aura of Life. These are fantastic spells for anybody to take if you can. Now, I'm sure I did not go through the entire spell list. I know I did not go through the entire spell list. So there's probably a lot of spells that are actually much better than another counterpart, or much worse that I just didn't cover in this video. But I would love to know what those spells are so I can try and avoid them, or at least let my players know to avoid them.